Now I'm going to show you how to use these buttons and below and down here with MC11. First of all, we need some data to be loaded into the memory. I have some torque angle files here. Okay, what you see is I have 5 rundowns, which that's how it looks like. Now what can we do with these buttons? There are several buttons. It's called point, slope, delta, and peak, two peaks, peak, valley, and yield detection. To start with, if I click on the point button and drag the cursor on the graph, you will see all the values of the points that's crossing at this point shows on the right side, which is the torque and angle. As I move it around, I can pick any point I want to. For instance, if I'm interested in this point, just right click and pick point and give it a name. For instance, I can give a name, say my point. Okay, it will pick up that location and then mark as A. A on the right side in the repository shows as my point. If I double click this, it will display all the values of that point in time, torque, tension, angle, RPM. These are the channels that we have been recorded. So you can do this with all the graphs, and then later on you can plot them and we can do statistics on these points. Let's, for instance, just pick another point. Just pick a point here. Let's call the maximum, for instance. Let's call point, and my max. Let's call max. My max. Pick that point. In here, I have A and B. I want to get rid of A and just keep it as a B. So I can get rid of both of them. I can highlight it and then click delete, and we'll delete both of them. I can do it again and just pick a point, right click, point, and my max. Then I can go to the next one. For instance, click here, right point, point, my max. It comes. It picks as A. As you see, is A here too. And again, I do the same thing for all the files that I've loaded. Same thing. I have 5 of these files. So I can have all of them with point A on them. Then I can use all the statistics for only this point and come up with plus minus 3 sigma on that point. That's for point. The other the button is slope. What can you do with slope? You can find the slope of a line in here manually. So we can just, for instance, put the first point here, then move the cursor to another point. You can, let's see, first here, then move the point to another point. Oh, sorry. Let's go back to slope. Click first and move and drag the cursor. You can see it, a straight line is drawn between 2 points. For instance, I'm interested here. I can right click it, it's called slope, and we can call, I can give a name to it, my slope, for instance, my slope. So it picks B1, B2 and puts it as my slope there. So we have information. For instance, in here we have torque 1, which is 17.87, torque 2, 56, and this is the slope of the line. And then it also gives you the percentage of yield, 31% of yield. This is for something else. I will discuss this later on. But mostly torque 1, torque 2, and slope, that's what you have here. That's doing manually. You can do for all of these, for instance, and do the same thing as manual. You mostly use this for finding the yield of a point, but here let's call it my slope. So I've done 2 of them, the one and the previous one. Okay. There's another way to figure out the yield automatically. There is a button. I'm going to jump through these buttons and go to the yield detection. If I click this, move this center here. There are several methods on figuring out where the yield is. The first method is the yield method A, which here says the low value is percentage of max value. So it's 40% of the max value somewhere here. It starts bringing here, and it starts going upward and until it sees a bend, then it picks it up. This is the old one right now. Let me just get rid of the old one, so we don't have anything here. So I'll go back there again. Low, 40% go. So what it does, it goes there and then it sees a bend, and that's your yield. So it figures out what the value, the name, it puts a yield, which is the slope type peak point. So that's what we have. So another method is the name of the yield. So another method is method B. What it does in here, for instance, it goes from 30% to 80%, draws a straight line, then shifts it by 30 degrees. And wherever the line meets the graph, that we'll call it as a yield point. In here, let's go. So that B point, that's our yield point. So the B, if I say as a point, it picks it up as a point. So this is 1 point, it's called yield. That's the method B. The other method, it's a little more sophisticated. And method C, what happens, you says it asks for low value, percentage of yield, percentage of the max value on y-axis is 30%. So somewhere in here, 30% of the max is selected. And if its slope changes by 50%, means it bends by 50%, it will detect it as a the yield point. And also it does this every 10 degrees. So that's every increment of 10 degrees, it moves up and figures out the slope. If the value of slope up here is changes within 50% of slope that's down here, and this causes yield. So to activate this, if I say go, it picks it up as that way. So we can play with this and the beginning and end. Let's see if I change the beginning, what happens as 30%. Instead of 30%, if I say 50%, which starts somewhere in the middle here. If I say go, it goes up further and then detects the yield point. So that's the method C. Again, the same name applies here, and it shows up all the values for that one: torque, tension, everything else that's been recorded. Let's see. So I discussed three methods: method A, B, C, and also the manual method that I showed you down here. The last part is seat torque detection. It doesn't work very well for here. You need somewhere that has some bend here. It would show you the seat. So I'll show this later on to you. Let's cancel this. The other pick buttons is delta. Delta means if you can pick 2 points and find the difference between those 2 points. For instance, if you can find delta between here and there, and the difference between these two are the 424 degrees and torque of 10 foot-pound. And if you like, you can right click it and call delta and save it as, let's say, my delta. So C1, C2, as my delta, shows you the difference of the 2 points and the delta point, the torque 1, torque 2, and the difference is the 10.752 between these 2 points. To show you these other parts, I need to bring a better graph than what I have here. So what I'm going to do, to what we exactly done here, we can save it for later on, which would stay with the file. To do that, there is a button that lights up, which says Save Data File. Either by exiting, this will show up, or you will ask this question, or you can do it right now. By doing this, all these points that we picked are saved to these files. So if I open up the directory and the drawer for other data files, I can get rid of them. So pick another file called drive strip. Open. So this is another file. Let me clean up this file. Delete. So there is nothing selected on this file. So to show you the twin pick, which is the two picks, if I click this and put the cursor between in a valley between two picks, this is one pick and this is another pick. If I put here and click, it goes to left, finds the maximum, and goes to right, finds the maximum. If I right click, gives two pick, and it tells you the name drive strip. You can select this or you can change the names. Save. So what happens if it saves the A and B, and one's called drive, the other one's called strip. Double click on these things. Let me show you the values of the left and right. You can do a bunch of data points, and that will work fine. The other one is find peak. You can, if for instance, if it's a busy graph, you want to find the peak of some place here. If you want to find the peak here, it goes and finds that peak of this square. And if I right click it, it's a point. So we can say it's just my peak. Okay, my peak. Okay, so that's what I have here. These names, by the way, stay with the program, and you don't have to retype this again only one time. The other one is the find a value. For instance, if you want to find a value here, you can draw a square. It finds the lowest point, which is called value. Right click, point, and let's say if I want to add another one to this called my value. So ABCD, that's all we have here on my value. So that's another, that's a value point. The last one I wanted to show you is the seed. That's in the section of the automatic detection. So if I use this seed, what happens? It goes and finds the lowest value. For instance, it goes searches the highest 30% of the maximum, for instance, right around here, and goes backward and finds where there is a lowest point and calls it seed. So if I activate this, I found this point as a seed and call E. If I go back as a seed point, we have all these values there for the seed. So these are the automatic detection for the yield and seed, and I just explained all these parts to you for picking the points. What can you do with these pick points? Later on you can use it for statistics. Another point you can do with, there's a couple of zoom in and unzooming. If you like to zoom an area, and then you can scroll it back and forth. Also, if you have a touch, you can, I'm doing this with the touch with my finger, or you can do this with your finger. It depends on the computer, it has a touch capability or not. You can go back. This is another part that you can cut and save. I don't recommend using this for only maybe printing type of things. That's it for now for pick points.